Please let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Okay. Okay. Good evening once again, everyone. Sorry, I said good evening. I'm still very sleepy. Yeah, good morning. Um, on Thursday, we started talking about Defender for endpoints, and we covered um, protect against threats with Microsoft Defender for endpoints and the different kind of threats we can protect ourselves against using Defender for endpoints. And um, we also covered the processes for we also cover the processes for deploying Microsoft Defender for endpoints. And yeah, basically also how to configure device group. But I did mention that before you can configure device group, the first thing we need to do is actually ensure that we have devices that we can put in a group. So let me quickly sign in. We have devices that we can put in a group. I want to believe that all of us, we've tried in our different capacity to create our VMs and to put our VMs in and to put our VMs in enroll our VMs in device for in Defender, so for endpoint. So if you have not done that, please do that because everything we'll be doing today actually builds on that. So if you go back to what's it called, our guide, we've completed the first two objectives. And then we are on how to implement Windows security enhancements using Defender for endpoints. And a lot of time when attack happens, the focus of this is actually on getting advisory from Defender for endpoints and reducing the attack surface. And reducing the attack surface by leveraging those advisories, creating some policy or some settings that actually hardened our environment against prevalent attack. And after we're done with this with this unit, basically, and the expectation is that you'll be able to explain what attack surface is and what attack surface reduction is, and how to enable and configure it on Windows devices. Now, if you attack surface reduction is actually all about hardening the places where a threat is likely to attack. Most time, for you to have an incident, there must be a vulnerability and there must be a threat actor. So basically, the threat actor looks for the vulnerabilities within your environment, and those are the things that the threat actor try to exploit. So if you as a Microsoft threat engineer or maybe a security operation analyst, you look within your environment, you find those vulnerabilities and you actually remove them or adding them before the attackers can find them. Basically, what you are doing is reducing your attack surface, basically. So, while you are performing investigation, you should know the events generated by attack surface reduction on the host. Most time when people try to do things that you have enabled by policy to be undoable, basically, you get an alert, and that can actually give you a clue, even though you don't have a successful attack, basically. But when you get notified, it gives you idea of what is going on in your environment, and if there is any extra effort you need to put in place to ensure that you reduce those attacks, you can do them. There are many ways or component for attack surface reduction. One of them is through the creation of rules. Basically, you can reduce vulnerabilities in your application with intelligent rules that help you stop malwares, or through the use of Defender antivirus, which is part of the Defender for endpoint. You can have hardware isolation. A lot of malwares will attack the hardware even before the operating system loads. And if the integrity of the underlying hardware that your operating system or your application is running on is already compromised, you can as well also assume that the application is compromised. You have application controls which can check and ensure the integrity of all of the applications that are actually running on your system. You have the network protection. A lot of time organizations will have firewall, and those firewall will probably be in the parts. I mean, when you look in terms of firewall, they are usually layer 3, meaning that they are looking at networks. So basically, it will only see your traffic when you are communicating with outside network, but it may not be effective in capturing maybe inside threats, basically. So if you enable the network firewall, if you enable the network protection, basically, what that does for you is being able to actually filter the traffic that even comes to your individual system endpoints. You have web protection. We discussed that on Thursday as well, where we also configure different filtering that we want to do, and how you can also block some URLs, some IPs, some file from being downloaded to your system. We talk about the control folder access, and we talk about device control. All of these things are configurable, and we did actually configure them. Um, we did actually configure them on Thursday. Now, to enable attack surface reduction, there are several things that you can do. Basically, you can use Defender for endpoint policies. And when you configure Defender for endpoint policies, you always have the option of do not configure, which means disable the attack surface reduction. But sometimes do not configure will always have a default. And most time those defaults may be to enable, and sometimes it may mean to actually not enable. Basically, so anything you want to enable, you need to be very intentional in actually enabling them. And you see several rules. I mean, some of the rules that you can actually configure, like blocking executable content from email and webmail. A lot of time, if you look at the anatomy of things like a ransomware attack, most time it's because someone downloaded something or someone received an email and they hacked on it. That's always the genesis. So when people receive potentially harmless looking files, and they open it, and those files may look like a PDF, but they are running executable in the background. So blocking things like being able to run executable from email clients or webmail are one of those precautions that organization can take. For office application also, one of the things that the malwares vendors always do these days is actually to embed their processes under one of the legitimate application. So for office application, for instance, you can prevent it from running a child process. So basically, these are some of the things that you can do. You can block untrusted or unsigned process that run from USB. I think the default nowadays is actually to even block USB altogether, except when you're using an HID. So other than HID, mass storage should not be usable on USB for most organizations if you're really serious about DLP. So basically there are times when there are false positive. So basically if you have some applications folder that you want to exclude, you can do those exclusion. And for most time when you start configuring things, you may just want first to be able to evaluate how it's going to impact your organization. So for most time where you configure things, rather than enforce by default, you can actually just want to leave it in audit mode where it just evaluates the rules basically and tells you what action would have been taken if it has been enabled. So the attack surface reduction, you don't necessarily have to configure it through my screen sharing has stopped working. Is that true for others? Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, Usman, it might be your network. So for the attack surface reduction rule, there are so many tools you can use basically because it's all about actually ensuring that you have proper configuration of your system. You can use Microsoft Defender rule to enable that. You can use Microsoft Intune. You can use other mobile device management. If you have endpoint configuration manager, you can use that. You can use group policy and you can use PowerShell. But if you use PowerShell, anybody with administrative rights can always override that. So basically, it's always good to use one of the top four, including Defender for Endpoint, to actually enforce those security. So if you know maybe what a standard or a base configuration should be like, if you are familiar with things like a CIS baseline, you can apply them, and I believe that will also have already included attack surface reduction. But for defender, it can actually give you insight into how well you are doing and if there is any changes or maybe any security loopholes with the vulnerability in your configuration that you need to add in. It can also give you that insight. So basically you can configure from Intune. You can use any mobile device management to do your configuration. You can use endpoint configuration manager, you can use group policy, but you can use PowerShell. I'll not always recommend to use PowerShell or to configure those changes what's it called locally on the system. You really want to use things like group policy or an MDM system. That is just to ensure consistency and to ensure that if anybody tamper with the setting, the next time the policy schedule runs, it can always put back the policy that you want as an organization. And list of attack surface reduction. Okay, sorry. So yeah, okay, I think we've spoken about this. List of attack surface reduction events. Most time when attack surface reduction events occurs, they are logged under um Microsoft, and I mean they are logged under application and service logs Microsoft within the Microsoft event viewer. So if you need additional information to troubleshoot things, that's one good place you may check for you to actually see what's being configured. Which solution is used to control the application that must end trust to be run? It's exploit protection, controlled folder access, application control. So based on our conversation, which of the solution is used to control the application that must end trust to be run?
Application control.
Yeah, application control. Which option below is an attack surface reduction rule that can be configured? Block PowerShell from executing. Block process creation originating from ps-exec or WMI command. Block content from mobile device. I know
Let
I
me plug
didn't.
in the process.
Okay, go ahead.
Option D. Option D.
You may go ahead.
The middle one. The middle one.
The middle one, what's in the middle one? PSSX. Okay. So PSSX is a part of I think Windows System Internal. It's one of the two developed by I think some Microsoft engineer, but not as part of Windows itself. And you can use it to do a lot of things. Most time, if I need to personally, you can use it as an admin to I mean to act what is it called, productivity, and bad guys also can use it to wreak havoc. I used to use it in the past if I need to do something. Maybe I've been just given a target before we started using configuration manager. If I'm given a target to do something and I need to do it on multiple systems, that's my go-to tool. But again, the same way you can use it, that's the same way the bad guys can also use it. Which of the following option is a deployment option? Microsoft Deployment System, ASR config, and PowerShell. I think we talk about the different ways you can deploy what's it called? Attack surface reduction. We talk about using the group policy. We talk about the use of Microsoft Intune, MDM, even using the endpoint defender for endpoint policy sets. So, but which one of these did we mention along?
PowerShell.
Oh, sure.
PowerShell, yeah. So basically we got that. I don't think we need a summary, so I'm just going to skip. Now, how do you perform investigation in Microsoft Defender for endpoints? Okay. How do you perform investigation with Microsoft Defender for endpoints? How do you use the device inventory list? So basically, I think I still mentioned this last week that a lot of time your analysis always starts from, sorry, let me power up the other VM I onboarded. I mean, yeah, portal.azure.com. So when your security always start from knowing your assets, your security always start from knowing your assets. If you don't know the assets you have, I'm not sure how you want to protect the assets, and you even need to have an ongoing evaluation basically for you to be able to check regularly that the security you have in place is actually working. That the security you have in place is actually working. So all of the devices that you onboard into Defender for endpoint basically you're going to see all of them under these devices. One thing you can see is you can always see the laptop name. This is my physical laptop I'm currently working from, and this is the VM I just powered up now. You can see the device category. If it's a workstation, a mobile device, you see it as computer and mobile. And if it is a server, you'll be able to see the server. If you have defined some criticality for the server and it meet that criticality level group, basically, you also see the criticality level group being said. And just now, sorry, under device type, basically device category, I think I mixed up. Device category, you see computer and mobile, and if it's a network device, you see it as a network device. And under device type, you see if it's a workstation or if it's a server. If it's joined to a domain or a work group, you see it here. If the device is joined to Azure AD, you see the device ID. And if you see risk level, or no risk, you'll be able to see it. The exposure, you'll be able to see it. And basically, if you have issue with it, you'll be able to see it. And discovery source, basically, the way it's been discovered as well, you'll be able to see it. You see that this one was onboarded through Defender for Endpoint. This one was discovered through Defender for Cloud because we deployed Defender for Cloud and onboarded this server earlier. However, this has not been fully onboarded into Defender for Endpoint, and basically you can see the because it's detected by Defender for Cloud, it gives me some information about the server because they are sharing. You probably saw while we were configuring a setting on Thursday where we were saying there should be sharing of information with Defender for Cloud, basically. Because of that, this Defender for Cloud is sharing information with this, but basically Defender for Endpoint is not running on this server. So one of the things that I would love to quickly do is actually to also onboard. I hope I remember the password. Is to onboard this. Is to onboard this server as well. Onto is to onboard this server also into okay. Is to onboard this server also into Defender for Endpoints. I think I always try as much as possible to use two. And this is what I was saying. If you are part of an organization, you may not want to be onboarding application one by one. So basically, one of the things you may want to do is actually ensuring that you use one of your mobile device management or configuration management to onboard the systems, and that ensures basically that you can onboard system at scale when they fit the criteria that you have set. So I have a script that I believe, okay, sorry, let me drag this window away. I have a script that we downloaded, if you recall, last week for onboarding, and by default I can use that script on up to 10 system. I've only used it on one system, so I'm just going to go ahead, paste it, and then use it to onboard this system as well. If you recall, also we need to run command prompt as admin, and basically I need this part, so I'm just going to cd into that part. Oh, okay. Extract all. I don't want zip, so it's been extracted. I can just do this and enter. It's asking me if I want to continue. I'm saying yes, and has not started yet. Waiting for service to start. So basically, it will run, and then it should onboard the device. So just to save time, I'm going to drag it to my second screen while it's doing its thing. So basically, if you look at the device, I said it's, I mean, if you don't have understanding of what you have, there is no way. Yeah, so there's no way you can there's no way you can secure what you don't know exists, basically. So, and luckily, Defender for Endpoint actually just gives us this information. And now, if I click on this device, there are so many things I can see. I mean, the first thing is I can see the different information about about the device up until the type, how it was discovered, the version information, the health state. I mean, in terms of reporting and what's it called, Defender for Endpoint Connectivity, it's LD, the IP address, the asset group, if it's on it, and you can see that endpoint DLP status is currently disabled. So in an organization where you want to use Defender for Endpoint to control DLP, this is a good way to actually see the status for it. But for me, I actually always prefer to not to have many configuration about a particular subject everywhere. If I'm using Defender for Endpoint to manage security, I'll probably put all of the endpoint configuration in there. So the DLP policy sync set, what is currently enabled in terms of configuration. You can see it and how it was enrolled, and you can also see people that are logging on the system. You can see that the most logon account is admin, and you can see that the recently logon is also admin. And you can also see the status. Basically, it's telling you that I have local admin access, that this account has local admin access to the system. Basically, if you look at that, it's actually telling you that it's a risk. Nobody should actually have a local admin access to their system by default, because accidentally they can run a malicious software under the admin privilege, under the admin, with their admin access. And currently look at the list of things that you can do. If this system is very critical to us, I can set the criticality from here. And also some of the things that I can do, I can report device inaccuracy. If there are things on it, I can initiate a virus scan. I can collect investigation package. I can restrict app execution on this. Um, so if I click on that, this prevents applications that are not that have not been signed by Microsoft, or that have not been verified to be signed by Microsoft, not to run on the device. You can see the initiate automated investigation if the system has been reported about an issue has been reported about the system, or maybe I have some activities ongoing, or maybe a case has been reported. I can initiate an automated investigation on the system. I can initiate live response session as well with the system, but this is currently disabled because the system is not joined to AAD. I can isolate the system if I feel that there is something wrong with the system. And if you are not sure, you can also ask a defender and experts. Basically, you are contacting Microsoft support to help you. And so if you want to force release from isolation, you can do that. You can do an exclusion, and you can go on hunt. If you need to do advanced search or advanced hunting, running an advanced query. And if you have some policies that you recently created that applies to this system that you want to force as well, you can go ahead and click on policy sync, and that should help you also quickly sync. So that should help you to basically sync your, sorry, 1 minute. So that should help you to basically sync your policy quickly. So you have all of your
2 seconds, please.
okay.
Is it because you are using your on-premise device? That's why
The-
the policy say
yeah,
cannot be clicked.
no, because I've not created any policy. I've not created any policy. What we did on, what is it called? What we did on Thursday was to actually enable some functionality of endpoint defender for endpoints that we want to use. But in terms of actually configure, if you look at under endpoint, basically you have configuration management and then you have endpoint security policy. So I have this policy, but I've not applied it to any group. So basically, you see there is no device report available, and that's because I've actually not applied it to anything. So basically, if I'm going to enforce anything, then I'll have to what was it? What I have to apply it basically to something. Yeah, so basically in terms of finding the assets, yeah, you can see the assets and so you can see the assets that you have, and if you have different types, network devices, IoT devices, or even devices that are uncategorized, you basically see all of the devices that you have onboarded. Also, in terms of dashboard, the dashboard actually just gives you a quick overview of your systems, and I mean of all of your system and your exposure. Um, in terms of your exposure score, you can see my score basically. 15 means that it's very low. That means currently in terms of configuration, I'm not doing well in terms of actually reducing the attack surface. I need to improve on it. Medium is bad, high is worse, basically. So high is worse basically. So I think the closer to the ground you are, the better. And I think that's how it should be for organizations. Also, some of the security recommendation, you can see it. If I click on show more, basically, you see, I'll still get back to that dashboard. You see some of the applications that I have, some of them have some level of vulnerabilities, and basically it's giving me tips on what to do. There are some of them that what I just need to do is create a attack surface reduction policy, and that should be sufficient in actually blocking them. Some of them I just need to enable Microsoft Defender antivirus email scanning. So this basically should help me prevent maybe executable from running from out of the applications, I mean out of my email. If I receive email, basically it should be able to, and you can see that this is actually complementary of Defender for Office, which was also looking at emails, attachments, and all of those things that are coming in. So basically I have a lot of recommendations in actually configuring attack surface reduction. And most time, if you don't understand how you can configure it, basically if you click on it, it gives you information, detailed information about what you need to do, and you have remediation options a lot of time. And this is one of the issues I always, when I was in IT, when I was in full IT, and sometimes if you have some security guys come to you and tell you that, hey, you need to do this. Oh yeah, how? Or let's do it together. They don't also know how to do it. They are just telling you to go and do something that they themselves they've not done. So one good thing with Defender is it just will not tell you about the vulnerability or the weakness. It's also telling you about how to implement it and the options that you have. So basically, it shows that it says that I should ensure that the Defender antivirus is enabled, and also that, I mean, the Defender antivirus is turned on, and also that with real-time protection is enabled, and also I should ensure that the ASR rule is enabled in block mode. So basically, I can follow any of these steps basically to actually do that. And currently, which device do I have that uh, that has the WMI persistence enabled? It's my laptop, basically. So for an organization, I mean, WMI is one of those interface that people can actually use to communicate and control your system remotely. So if you don't want your system to be controlled remotely, basically, you can I mean you should enable that. And in terms of your application, your OS, your network settings, accounts, and security controls, you basically can see the number of recommendations that Microsoft has and the number of controls that you currently have implemented. So for a lot of organizations who want to improve on their security, you actually have more of a lot of metrics here that you can use to basically improve your application. Now, if you look at top vulnerable software, if you have vulnerable software you are running on your system, um, if you have vulnerable system, if you have vulnerable software you are running on your systems as well, you have those systems, you see the number of devices affected, and basically this also help you in a way to actually prioritize what's it called, to prioritize remediation as well. I mean, I have some applications here that I think I've not touched in a very long while. So things like Python, I run Python at a point when I was helping someone. So I believe it's currently obsolete, and I just need to ensure that okay, I think I saw something about Anaconda as well. I just need to ensure that those are basically updated. And when you do an update, basically you can see that in terms of remediation, you see the update that you have done. Basically you see whatever you are updating, you see it. I think you're seeing this one here because I actually requested an action to update an open SSL. A lot of time, you see that where work is also distributed across teams, you may have okay, I need to update Zoom, but it may not necessarily be the security team that is responsible for updating the application. It could be the IT team. So basically, if you want to log and track it for someone, basically you can always request remediation. And how do you want to request remediation? It could be, or what kind of remediation do you want? A lot of time it's going to be an update. If it's for application that is end of life or no longer supported, it could be for the team to uninstall, and it could just be you want to notify someone else to provide an attention on it. So if you have Microsoft Intune, you may want to log maybe a ticket in Intune for the device administrator. If you are using Intune for your MDM, you may want to just log a ticket in Intune for device administrator to actually look at. In terms of remediation, you can set the remediation date, you can set the priority, low, medium, high, and you can provide maybe notes. Please update all software to prevent exploitation. So you can provide an update, and basically you can submit this. And if you submit it, if you go to remediation as well, you actually see it as logged. So basically, this is one of the actions. And if you really want to track it, you can track it. And I think the only downside to this basically is that it does not provide you the ability to actually assign it to someone. But if you have Intune in place for managing device and maybe update, basically, this notification then goes to your Intune, and your Intune administrator can see those and also act on it, basically, if they because it will be logged for them within Intune. I think that said, in terms of inventory, you can quickly have a list of all of your software. So this can help organizations that have a weak CMDB in actually looking at all of the different software used in their estate, the devices that have it installed, and in terms of vulnerable components of those software as well, you can see them and also export them. In terms of weaknesses that you have, or the CVE, um, all of the all of the inventories that we've been talking about earlier, the software, they are vulnerable because of a particular weakness that has been declared. So most times, if I actually click on the software itself, so if I'm actually on a software, I mean, if I'm on the software itself, sorry, how did I get here? Okay, if I'm on software itself and I go to maybe vulnerable component, I might actually be able to see the what's it called? What is vulnerable? You see associated CV, which is 2. What's this on OpenSSL? I have CVV. I have 2 that has been tagged as being very high. I have 2 that is medium. I have about 9, meaning that for this OpenSSL alone, I have about 13 vulnerabilities that have been reported. And for the files that, I mean, it's not OpenSSL is just one of those components of software that you find in many softwares. So basically, I see that Adobe is affected. I see that DriverSoft is affected. Which one? Microsoft OneDrive is affected. Windows app photo is affected. Lenovo is affected. So basically, I just need to do a full update of my system and all of the, I mean, if I do a full update, all of the ones that are released to Microsoft Driver, OneDrive, and all of those things should be resolved. I may need to do Lenovo driver utility update as well, and also I need to do an Adobe Acrobat Reader update as well. And if I'm able to do those, I think those vulnerabilities should go. So it's not just only tells you, sometimes it can actually pinpoint maybe some of the applications that have vulnerable components. And a component, I mean, component is different from software in that you may just have it as part of a software and it can be usable in multiple applications. So in terms of weaknesses, you can see some of the CV. A lot of time, a CV is one way of actually categorizing weaknesses or vulnerabilities in a system. And it has a rating, I think, of 1 to 9. Is it 1 to 9 for CV?
Ten.
I think there is CV for
There's
the,
10.
sorry,
CVA says
3,
3.0 is 1 to 10.
1
I
to
think
10.
from 0 to 3.9 is low.
Yeah. Yeah.
3.4 to
0 to
4 to 6
3.9 is actually not low.
mm,
Okay, to 3.9, yes.
is
So,
low.
yeah. So if you have 0. I don't think you are going to have any CVE with 0.0. So that basically means that there's no vulnerability. Vulnerability does not exist.
Yeah, I think those ones are the ones that they've not yet been able to
Discovered.
categorize.
Yeah. So in terms of so you can see the score: none, medium, high, or critical. And you should always be afraid of anything that is critical or high. Oftentimes, they are very the exploit is available. I mean, it can always be exploited. And I think also I think with you have I when it's also very easy to exploit and all of those things. So I think in most instances you want to prioritize. In most instances you do we use MDI or MD for server? I'm not sure what you mean by MDI.
Microsoft Defender for endpoints. The
No,
endpoint here is generic. It's not endpoint as user only devices. It's also the endpoint is also server. I think that's what it's trying to come. If there's a different Microsoft Defender for server, since this one is
no, it's the
endpoint.
same Microsoft Defender for endpoints that you use for the same one you use for server is the same one you use for what is it called? The same one you use for server is the same one you use for uh what's the right word? It's the same one you use for workstations as well. And if you recall, I think when we try to set it up on and enable features um what's it called? You have the option here to select between the device type. And basically, I just look at even the one I was onboarding now, the server I was onboarding, and it did not work. And why didn't it work? Because I'm using the one that is meant for what's it called? Windows client, Windows desktop. I'm using the one that is meant for Windows desktop for Windows server. So basically, I think my server is server 2016. So I basically should have used this and download maybe installation package or the onboarding script. Basically, you can use onboarding scripts, you can use installation package, whichever one works for you. But if you want to use an MDM system to do the deployment, oftentimes you want to use the installation package. I think that one is always easier to use and to manage compared to the script. But again, I think it depends on whoever it is that it depends on whoever it is that is implementing. It can always be, yeah, sorry, just a moment. So it can always be, yeah, it can always be sorry, extractor. So I mean, you can always use both, but it's just based on preference and then the tool you are planning to use for deployment, so to say. Yes, basically you can see from this deployment method that you can use it to deploy to Windows workstation, Windows 7, Windows 8.1, even though they are end of life, Windows 10, Windows 11, and then you can use it to, you can deploy it to servers, you can deploy it to Mac, you can deploy it to Linux server. You see that you can use it on iOS, and then you can use it on iOS, and then you can use it on Android device. And if you even have Windows subsystem for Linux, you can use it for on those basically as a plugin. So basically, in answering your question, is the same Defender for endpoints, and you can use it to onboard different system. Hope that clarifies, Emmanuel, if I got your question right. Emmanuel?
It's okay. Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
For me, I
Yeah,
wanted to mention something. I don't know where. So I was waiting for your onboarding to run, and so that I
yeah,
can see whether it was successful. So I have onboarded 2 devices on my MDE. However, I was trying to onboard another laptop and another VM.
yeah,
On both devices, when I created the download package and I
yeah,
ran it, it's got to a point Microsoft service did not start. And then it brought out error, I think error ID 15. And that was then. So I tried it on both systems. They were actually giving the same error. I don't know if any other person has experienced it or is experiencing that, and maybe you have any thought on fixing that. I didn't want to go. I could
Yeah.
just go to
Okay.
Microsoft and start fixing it, but I just wanted you to, if you can use it as a learning point here.
Yeah, I mean the one I ran earlier, you notice I just copied the one that we downloaded on Thursday and then tried to run it on my system. And I got the same error. I've
Yeah.
actually not been looking at it. So it's now that Emmanuel just asked that question that I came to the VM and I noticed that let me bring my screen. This is the error you're talking about.
Yeah, for me, I created a new one. So what I did was to go to the system I want to onboard.
Mm,
I was able to access my security.microsoft.com.
mm,
And then from that system, I generated the installation package and then unzip it and run it on well, first I was just installing it, which is right click and run as administrator. The second time I went to command prompt
yeah.
and ran it, but both occasions they gave that same error.
So what system are you onboarding? Which one did you
I think
on?
there are Windows
Yeah, on the what?
10 or 11.
10 and 11.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing for me, you see that there are different package for different systems.
Yeah. I selected Windows 10,
Yeah.
but this
So,
connectivity type, what I use standard connect. No, not this one. So Windows 10 and 11 selected.
mm,
Then connectivity type, I used standard.
you use standard, okay.
I think I used Streamline for the first one. Again, when I first onboarded on the two devices that are currently onboarded on MD, I didn't use any of this. I just selected the right operating system and I was able to execute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, two things. When it fails, Microsoft in most cases is going to give you a reason or probably give you a link
Yeah,
to,
I didn't want to. I just wanted to use it as a learning point. I will fix it, but in case
yeah.
anybody runs into it, yeah, please
So
continue. Let me
in
not
case
distract your
for me,
class.
I'm going to fix my own now because I know what I did wrong. I was using Windows 10 to actually install 2011. But for most people, if you run into issues or you have into error, the first thing I always do is actually to look at the error link and try to see what it says. In most cases, it gives you instruction. Okay. I'm not able to copy out. So in most cases, it gives you instruction on what may be wrong and how you have to fix it. So, okay.
So I ran into the same challenge yesterday with
Yeah.
Windows Server 2016. So I tried to troubleshoot, but I gave up. Then I went to
Now, you can see that, I mean, I just came to the link provided in the, what's it called? And you mentioned, Wally, that your error code is 15. Hello, Wally?
I think so. I think error ID, but
Yeah,
the
so basically what Microsoft has done here is to list an error code
you can
and
zoom make it bigger later.
yeah, sorry, is to list an error code and give you what you should do.
Solution. Yeah,
So
I
if
think
what you
this.
have is fail to start send service,
Yeah.
then you can check the service yourself by query sense.
Okay.
if it's failed to start send service, basically, make sure it's not in an intermediate state like pending stopping, pending running. So basically, if the message of the error is system error 577 or blah 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 blah. So basically you have three scenarios for error 15.
No, I don't.
That is,
Mayukumi, I don't
yeah.
think. I think you can continue since this is a
No,
documented.
actually, it's just good for other people. Basically, so that if anybody have that question, I mean, run into the same issue, they understand how to
Okay.
navigate it.
Same error here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same error here, but for me, I think I'm even wrong with the file I tried to use. Okay. So that said, okay, we're fast spending our time. So in terms of weaknesses, you can see the CVV that corresponds, and a lot of time, if you want to prioritize, I think I always just prioritize by the score, descending. So basically, I want to see the high impact one first, and that can really help me. Now, I see here that affected software for this vulnerability is OpenSSL. I have a lot of application to to update, because basically here I can see the different systems that are affected by it. And this vulnerability has been published since February, making it 3 months. I have some vulnerabilities that has been published for 2 years. So how well you're actually managing vulnerability within your organization, this can also be an indication. But the good thing is I don't have too many high vulnerabilities currently. But again, it's for people to prioritize. You can see for each of the vulnerabilities, you can see the vulnerability details, how it can be remediated, and basically all of the CVV information that you will typically have. I don't have time to go over into the interpretation of this. Then you have the assets affected, and then you have the affected software as well. So this also gives you a quick overview of all of the applications that you may need to update, basically to close out the vulnerability. If you sorry, to close out the vulnerabilities. So in terms of configuration, I did mention that endpoint manager can also be used to enforce configuration settings in what's it called, in your organization. So if you have different tools in your organization, so basically, you can also look at the different securities and the settings that you are enforcing and where they are coming from. And as you can see, we talked earlier that you can use the Microsoft Defender endpoint by itself. You can use Intune to enforce. You can use Configuration Manager. And if you have some other security that are enforced, but you don't know from where they are being enforced as well, you can also just have those, basically the management points, basically, so you can have them. In terms of endpoint security policies, there are several policies. You see that many of the recommendations that I saw earlier was about attack surface. Why is it taking too long to load? Was about attack surface reduction. Was about attack surface reduction. So basically, we can do attack surface reduction by sorry, it's endpoints, by going to configuration management, endpoint policy, and I can click on create a new policy. when selecting a policy, you see that also like earlier before, you have to be specific about the platform, whether it is Windows, whether it is Mac or Linux that you're trying to create it for. I'm just going to select Windows, and you see that you have different templates, and you see that you have a template for device control. If you want to block things like USB and all of those things, you can use the device control. And you see here for device control, it recommends a layered approach to securing removable media. And Microsoft Defender for endpoint provide multiple monitoring and control features to help prevent threats in unauthorized peripheral for compromising devices. So just for context, if you click on yes, you can give it a name, removable media policy. You can give it a description, which I always recommend, because again, you may come back to the policy and not remember what you were thinking when you were configuring it. And basically, you see different things that you can configure about the Defender. If the device control is enabled or not. If it is not configured by default, it is enabled. So I'm just going to click on enable. Allow full scan of removable devices. If you want to scan removable devices, you can turn it on. Default enforcement. Default enforcement, if you are not clear about anything, if you over on this is the enforcement applied if there are no policy rules present at the end of the policy rule, basically. So this just shows if there are no policy, I mean, you've turned on device control, but you've not configured a particular policy that is needed. What do you want to do? Enforce the default. Allow enforcement of that particular policy if it's not been configured. It's a quick way of just applying everything if you want to do that. And under device control, basically, you can add the device and then you can add the device type. Now, this place is very tricky because, earlier when I was saying a lot of time you just want to block USB device, except maybe an HID. So each USB device that you plug to a system, if you plug a gaming console to your system, or if you plug a mouse, or if you plug a media storage, how does in a lot of situations where mass storage is blocked, if you plug your phone to charge, how does your system know that okay, I can block the what's it called? I can block the storage usage on the device and still allow charging? Or how does he know that okay, this is a mouse that has been added? That's because every USB device always have an ID, and it is that ID that announce the type of device it is, whether it is a mass storage or whatever. So basically, if you want to block a particular device type, you need to have the device ID basically for that device type for you to be able to block it. So in terms of direct memory access, you can always, so I'm just not going to go into details because I'll begin to talk about computing. So basically you can look at different settings that are available and just configure as you would like. And the same thing also applies to what's it called? I mean, the same thing applies to storage card if you're using it, Bluetooth if you want to configure it, storage device if you want to um do storage device. In a lot of time, organization may allow people to read but not be able to write after they have done the scanning. If you are interested in scanning, I just scan the device. Obviously, if it contains any malware or something suspicious, it is quarantined. If I want to allow people to be able to bring in data but not be able to take out, I can just deny write access by enable. And that means that I can still fulfill DLP protection with this because I don't allow them to write data to removable storage. But again, I allow the what's it called? The defender to scan the storage that it is safe and also to ensure that it doesn't run any setup file from those storage basically, while I ensure that people cannot take out information, but if I want to allow them to bring in information, depending on your organization policy. I think that is what I always say. Before you configure a policy, the first thing is what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to achieve? And that will always be the guiding force. So basically, that is one thing you can configure. You can also configure endpoint detection and response. We already said that Defender for endpoint is not just able to detect, it can respond to certain action. So if you need to configure those action, you can do it. You can do the Defender update control. How frequently do you want a Defender to update on device? Sorry, I didn't mean to go in there just to save time. You can do Defender update control. A lot of signatures. I mean, virus malwares are being engineered every day. And in defense, antivirus also need to keep updating their signature to be able to catch up with the new the new strains of malwares, antivirus malware or viruses that are coming into the market, basically. So you may have a policy to say that maybe all of your devices should update every 1 month, or maybe every 1 hour, depending on your organization. If you want to configure firewall rules for your system and endpoints, you can do that. If you want to implement attack surface reduction, some of the recommendations we saw earlier, you can do that. If you want to configure specific things about Defender antivirus, you can do that. If you have an exclusion, maybe file path, application, or process, you want to exclude from Defender antivirus, you can do that. And also you may be interested in actually configuring security experience and Windows security experience. If you're using, I mean, this one tells about how notifications or actions on your system should be communicated to the end users. So if you have different policies to configure and fine tune for your situation or your organization, then these are the places for you to come. So Wale, I think I'm just going to stop here to take a 5 minute break or maybe 6 minute break, and then we come back by 9:20, and then we can complete on. Please confirm you can still see my screen.
We can see if you can make it bigger. It'll be good.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think I've already spoken through this. Okay. Time now. Load event, software verify, user behavior blocking. Okay, EDR. So, basically, one of the things that is possible, I think I didn't go too much in details in terms of the Defender antivirus, but one of the things that the Defender antivirus can do is actually detect threats just by analyzing behaviors and stop threats that have started running, basically. You see that when I ran what I ran the other time, I mean that was on Thursday. We just got a notification. But with the vendor antivirus, if you actually establish a pattern for ransomware, for instance, what you always see when you have a ransomware, it's a behavioral pattern. You probably notice that all of the files are being modified. You notice a pattern where files are being modified. And I don't think it is humanly possible, except maybe through some automation, for a user of a system to access maybe up to let's just say 10 files in 2 seconds or in 3 seconds or 5 seconds, basically. By the time you are clicking and opening to make a change and to move on to something else, it's normally possible for you to do like that 10 within 5 seconds. So basically, if the Defender antivirus notice a pattern where multiple files are being modified within 1 second or within 2, 3 seconds, it knows that that can be human behavior. Basically, it will have to be a ransomware. So when something like that is noticed, it can block that process and also just put the system on a red alert. And depending on the configuration of your EDR, it can also initiate a response. Whatever response that you have decided, maybe something like quarantining the device so that the device is not able to communicate with other systems across the network. And also Defender for endpoints have so many optics in terms of it's able to see things that are happening with users identity. In cases where Ayokumi has logged on one system, I've logged on three, maybe 10 systems at the same time, and I'm doing suspicious activity, so it can pick those signals up. You could see that when I was showing one of the devices that I had here, one of the things you could see is actually the account that is logged on, the recently logged on account, and the privilege of that account. So it has optics to see identity, it has optics to see emails and data, and it has optics to see the app. And based on all of those behavior or interaction of identity with all of those, it can actually detect suspicious behavior and also able to initiate a response. And when an alert is generated that has to do with users, you can also initiate maybe more of an action. I think in terms of alert tree, if you remember what was it called? The detection script that I ran on Thursday basically gave us something similar to that tree, where it actually looked at the suspicious behavior, and it actually gave you timeline of what I have done. At what time user init.exe, you see I launched an explorer. From explorer, I launched a command prompt. From command prompt, I ran this command, and you can see the anatomy. It just gives you a detailed breakdown of my activity. So if you want to understand what's it called, the behavior of an attack or maybe an alert that has been generated, if you go into the alert and then you go into the process tree, basically it gives you that information, and you also have the alert timeline, basically showing you when things happen and how things happen, the progression of things and what basically happened. So you can see the initiating process of CMD, but the things that I did before CMD, you can see everything. You can see the account that did it. You can see what I referenced in command line that raised the suspicion is the fact that I tried to download something from this URL. And basically, if you want to submit, if you have a URL that you look suspicious but you are not sure, one of the things you can do is actually just click on that URL and submit it for analysis. You can report it for malware, you can report it for phishing, you can report it clean. Basically, if it's nothing suspicious and it's being raised as being very suspicious. So basically you have as part of the EDR, basically you have a what's it called? You are able to initiate a response like blocking and different things that you can do based on behavioral learning. You can what's it called? You can initiate a blocking. Heuristics also, you can initiate a blocking. So I mean there are different what's it called, blocking mode in EDR. I didn't show that in detail just because of the time, But basically, I've already shown you how to configure EDR. If you want to configure it, you configure it through the configuration management and then policies. And from there, you can actually just see the different things that you can block and also what you want to provide a live response to as well, if you want to. In terms of what happens when something is detected, I've shown you the alert tree and I've shown you how you can report it as an incident, basically to Microsoft or to or to yeah, report it basically to Microsoft. If you want to do that, we've already spoken about device inventory. So I'm not going to spend time on it again. Perform actions using Defender for what's it called? You can run Microsoft Defender antivirus scan. You can run investigation and collect package from devices. You can initiate a live response session where you so for the live response session, it's actually allow you to create a connection to that system and then be able to do so basically, I mean, so live response session provides security operation teams instantaneous access. So it just allow you to collect a real-time access to the device using a remote shell connection, and it provides you the power to do an investigation and be able to pick up anything that you want to collect basically from the system. So I'm just going to play this video. Please let me know if you guys can hear it. Once it loads, just to demonstrate the live response section.
Live response gives a SecOps
Can you
analyst
hear the
instantaneous
sound?
access to a potentially compromised machine,
Yeah.
regardless of location.
You can hear the sound, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Live response gives a SecOps analyst instantaneous access to a potentially compromised machine, regardless of location, by using a remote shell. Analysts use this capability to quickly gather any forensic information that an investigation requires. I'll demonstrate how to enable and use live response in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. To enable live response, select Settings, followed by Endpoint, and then Advanced Features. Only admins and users who have managed portal settings permissions can enable live response. You'll see three options. First, turn on live response to enable the core live response functionality. You can enable live response for both clients and servers, but I'll just focus on clients here. By default, analysts can only run signed scripts for obvious safety reasons. However, you can also turn on live response unsigned script execution to give them the ability to run unsigned PowerShell scripts. This is not required to use the built-in live response functionality, though. Last, select Save Preferences. Now that live response is enabled, let's look at how to use it. That's next. You can start a live response session almost anywhere you see a device's details, like the flyouts you see when you select a device in a list. In this case, I'll start the session from a device's details page. To get started, select the meatball menu at the top of the page, and then select Initiate Live Response Session. And here we go. First, I'll review information in the Live Response console. Select View Device Details to show what Microsoft Defender for Endpoint knows about it. You can also see who created the session, when it started, and how long it's been open. There are specific commands that we can use in live response. If you're not sure what they are, just type help. And in Microsoft Docs, the page titled Investigate Entities on Devices Using Live Response offers a full list of basic and advanced commands available in live response. I'll go ahead and look at the running processes by running the processes command, and it displays a list of all the running processes. Quickly scrolling through them, I don't see anything that sticks out as suspicious. I also want to search for a malware file that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint previously blocked, just to make sure it doesn't need to be removed from a download location. Doesn't look like this is still around, which is a good thing. Last, I want to run a quick PowerShell script to back up the event log so I can download it. To do that, I'm going to select Upload File to Library and select my script. The option to upload a file to the library is only available to users with Manage Security Settings permission. After the script uploads, I can verify it's in the library by running the library command. To run any script in the library, just type run, followed by the name of the script. Once it finishes, we'll copy the log path and run the file info command to get more information about it. Last, I want to download this file to my device to review it. To do that, I'll run the get file command. And that's it. By the way, if you ever want to go back to reference what you've done during the session, select command log. I can then select the processes command I ran earlier to review its full output. Finally, when you're done, just select disconnect session to, well, end the session. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint logs all your activities in the Action Center for audit purposes. Audit logging provides useful documentation for other analysts and helps to discourage nefarious use of live response. Live Response provides security analysts with real-time access to users' devices, even when they're not on the corporate network. Learn more about it on Microsoft Docs.
Any question, first of all, before I proceed? Okay, so what the live session does, first of all, I had mentioned earlier that the core capabilities of endpoints can be enabled in settings. And I mean, of endpoints, Defender for endpoints can be enabled in settings, and live response, live live response. So live response is one of those capabilities, and basically if you want it for servers, a lot of people may not want it for servers. If you want it for servers, you can turn it on. If you want it for unsigned scripts, are those scripts that you've created yourself and does not have any digital signature. So I think in most cases, organizations or security team will always want to turn this one on, because basically they are what's the right word? Because they want to run some scripts that they have created themselves and are not signed. If you want to be able to create some deception for campaign, you can do this, but I think this is also available in Defender for Office, so you may not need to turn things on. If you have turned on the live response, and I think from assets that we went to earlier, one of the actions we're able to perform is actually live response. And one thing you should know is the fact that live response would only, if you initiate a live response, it only grants a shell access. It's not that you are able to control the screen and see all of the details like I have. Just that, I just turned it on, so it can take a while. So basically, if you have an alert that has been raised, for instance, and you need to do a proper check, like in this case, my command says that if you look at the alert timeline here, it's actually indicated that there was something that was referenced, like being downloaded. One of the things that I may want to actually check on the system is if this file called 1.exe was downloaded to my system. This will not open in a web browser. Normally, if you open a path to a file that is executable, it's only just download it to your system. So if I want to if I want to check if this file exists on the end user system, I've been alerted to this, and one of the response could be that, was this file actually downloaded to the system? If it's downloaded, can I quickly remediate it? Basically, in such a case, I may want to actually just use the what's it called? The live action, basically for me to look at the device and see if this executable file, or if this file has been detected on my system, basically. Okay, so for lights, so basically we've gone through that video. We've already seen the prerequisites and even the permissions that are required. These are just some of the commands that you can run within the live response window console. And also when there are histories of your command and everything, you can always go back in time to see the command that you ran, and also to see the commands that you ran, and also the output of those commands. And also, if need be, you can get files from the device, and you can download files in the background, or possibly you can create some scripts. If you are going to be reusing them, you can upload them in the library, and then you can always run your script from the library. And obviously, actually, you run all of your script from the library, but there are some you can also, if it's just a one-liner, you can put on the console within the within the app to use it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Now, one of the things with Defender for Endpoint, and I think this is the last topic. One of the things for the Defender for Endpoint, and what I would like to mention, is the fact that while you have vulnerability management as part of Defender for Endpoint, you see that it's mostly an advisory. I see all of the details. I know the things that need to be done, but unfortunately, I cannot take an action on those things that needs to be done directly. So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint actually allows you to buy an add-on license. And what the add-on license does is actually for you to be able to manage, monitor, and deploy what's it called? Deploy recommendations for vulnerable softwares and applications that you have within your organization. So vulnerability management in Microsoft Defender for Endpoints, in Defender for Endpoints. So basically, Microsoft Defender for Endpoints, vulnerability management can do the discovery and also find misconfigured devices based on known attack vectors and software vulnerabilities. And that's the focus. Some of the things that you can do, first of all, is the fact that it can breach workflow gap basically it's built in. You see those vulnerabilities as they are made available, and the engine is also cloud-based, basically. So it's integrated into Windows Endpoint security stack, and basically also intelligent security graph. You have real-time discovery of inventory, and then the inventory of the software itself, application runtime context. It's intelligence driven, exposing attacks as they are made available, and it can pinpoint details like active breach. If you look at some of the vulnerabilities that we add, or let me even say the recommendations, basically, in fact, I'm going to go to the weaknesses just to see the CSVVs. So if you look at some of them, basically one of the things that it tells you the vulnerabilities that you have. It tells you if there is any systems affected, and it tells you the affected applications that you may have. In terms of recommendations, it can also not just it can also not just tell you about the what's it called, applications where you actually have what's it called. If you have devices that are exposed, it tells you those devices that are exposed. And in cases where you actually have what's it called, you actually have it's been exploited, it looks for the IOC on your system and tell you that on this particular system the thing it's been exploited, just so you know. If you look at this what's it called, exposed critical device, for instance, if you have devices that have been impacted, then you see the number of the devices here, and when you actually open it, you are able to see the devices that have been impacted. Basically, you see those. If you have any device that have been impacted, please just give me a moment.
We can't hear you, Ayokun.
So for the I think I've spoken through the understand the vulnerability management. Um, so yeah, I was saying that we've already gone through how to explore vulnerabilities on the systems. And basically what this table does is actually to categorize what you have. You see Defender Vulnerability Management Core Capability as part of Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. You have the Defender Vulnerability Management add-on capabilities for Defender for um, Plan 2. And then you have Defender Vulnerability Management Standalone Full Vulnerability Management. And now, one of the things that you see for this, what we signed up for is Defender for Plan 2, and you can see what it covers. But what you see is that the add-on license for full vulnerability management capability actually include some additional functionality that are not available in the plan 2, the core capabilities of plan 2. So more like it gives us risk-based prioritization, even though in plan 2 in a way we can actually sort that. And I think that I did that where I actually solved based on CVS scoring. And just for me to be able to do the prioritization, you have security baseline assessment as part of that. So one of the things that we are able to do with the plan 2 is actually block vulnerable applications and also to be able to manage browser extension. And I think a lot of organizations are having issue with browser extension basically because it's very easy to set up and also difficult to manage. So in cases where you've identified some malicious browser extensions that people may be using in your organization that can put the organization in trouble, you can do that. And you can also assess digital certificate assessment. I think all CAs are meant to be very solid. But I think we also have some free CAs. I mean, CAs are Certificate Issuing Authority. I recall some years back when the root CA certificate of Let's Encrypt was compromised, and I think that was one of the things that revolutionized the certificate signing industry, the CA industry, and also led to some mergers, basically. So if you have some CAs that can potentially that are known for maybe not being that are known to what's it called, not to do security rightly, I think can gives you the opportunity also of actually managing managing those secure certificates or any connection using those certificates alerts you to them. And also one thing is the network share analysis as well, which is often not covered by so many things. A lot of systems look at systems, but they don't look at network shares, maybe things like a CIFS share storage, or maybe things like a NFS share storage. I think that's also is part of the what's it called, the benefits of the standalone. But again, organization would then need to individually actually review and see what is missing and if they are okay with that. And if you already have another solution in place for managing vulnerabilities or deploying software updates and all, I think that also helps you in a way. So you may not necessarily have to look into that. In terms of vulnerability management area, we did look at that earlier where we look at the dashboard, the recommendation, inventories, weaknesses, event timeline, and baseline assessments based on the recommendations as well. And in terms of vulnerability reports, you have on the what's it called that show you a graph and the chart of vulnerability trends and then your security exposure. So in terms of managing remediation, I think one way of that is a what's it called? One way of managing the vulnerability is what we saw earlier. Basically, if you, in addition to maybe your remediation or whatever, if you need to also initiate a live response session, basically where you just have a live shell session to connect to that system, collect maybe additional information, or maybe run some other checks on the system, you are able to do that remotely, even without the end user knowing that you are on the system. And regardless of where the system is, if the system is available and connected to the internet, you are able to initiate that connection to the system. You're able to initiate the connection to the system and to do the remediation. And some of the things also that we did mention is the fact that you can raise a remediation request as well. I demonstrated that steps already where you raised a what's it called? The only thing is the request, you log them. I mean, if you are using Intune, they can be logged in Intune basically. But if you are not using Intune, you have to go and generate a link for those requests and send it to maybe the person that needs to work on it, basically, for them to be able to access it. It does not allow direct assignment. That's one of the things that Microsoft possibly need to work on. And in terms of your remediated activity, for instance, I have some recommendations on things that I need to do. I think let me look at the easy one. It asks me to update Python. I think that's not an easy one. It asks me to let me see if I see anyone that is related to um maybe just updating software. So
Okay,
basically, yep.
can you look at whether you want around block untrusted and unsigned processes that run from USB?
I'll not be able to finish that within the
Okay.
time limit we have.
Okay.
So I was just looking for something maybe about okay. I can try to do the what's it called? The credential guard. You see, basically, it said we can enable credential guard using group policy. So I'm just going to use the group policy. What's it called? If I want to do it by GPO, basically I have to go to computer configuration administrative templates system. So I have a local GPO on my system, GP edit, and I'm just going to go into that part. Sorry. Yeah, so it asks me to go to computer configuration administrative templates, systems, and then device guard. Yeah, device guard. And for that, it asks me to turn on virtualization based security and enable and select one of the options listed below. Enabled with UEFI lock, enable with lock, basically. So I'm just going to turn it on. What's it called? Credential guard configuration drop down. Enable with UEFI lock. If I want to enable this, I can, but I just want to enable the minimal. Okay, enable with UEFI lock. Enabled and select one of the options listed under the credential guard configuration drop down. So basically I have done what it asked me. I've applied it to my system, and basically if I check, which can take few minutes, one of the things that would happen is I go back to one of the things that it will happen is any action that I take to vulnerabilities, for vulnerabilities management, if I take an action and I've remediated something, if I come back to remediation, under remediation, what I have done, I'll see it here as being done, basically. So for some of these recommendations, as you begin to act on them and closing them out, if you look at the remediation, it will mark it for you as done, and then you can see it here. So if your team, if you want to see the progress you are making, basically, and how well people are doing, you can use this to actually see what you have, what's it called? What you have, I mean, you'll be able to see what you have closed out. And I did mention also earlier about the standalone vulnerability management. For you see, explore defender vulnerability management capabilities in one simple trial. So I can enable this trial if I want. And some of the capability it gives me is something like additional functionalities within the application control. So basically, it would always look for vulnerable application by itself and block it instead of me having to actually do that one by one myself. You can use it to create and manage baseline profile to monitor the exposure. So you can create a baseline for your system group, and when you have particular system that does not meet that baseline, then you can do that. I spoke about browser extensions that need to be managed, which is currently not covered by the endpoint P2. So if you are interested in managing your browser extension, you would have to do that from here. We spoke about the certificate inventory. Basically, you can view certificate details on all of your devices in their organization expiration. And a lot of organizations that I think something happened to GTB, was it last year, where their domain actually expired and someone else purchased it, and that disrupted their service for days, even though they didn't come out to say that this is exactly what happened. People in the industry that know how things work know exactly what befell them, basically. So you need to manage certificate inventory. This is one good way of managing a certificate inventory across systems and getting notified before your service actually gets impacted by that. So for people who are interested in trying it out, you can also sign up for that trial, but you're not going to be tested in exam in this area. But people are interested in the exam. So are there any question? Any question, anything you want me to go back to?
Ayokumi, maybe just comment.
Okay, go
Comment
ahead.
around if you go to the dashboard of where you have the exposure score, yeah, this side, the bit around using the Microsoft CIS benchmark, sorry, not Microsoft, the CIS benchmark,
Yeah.
to be able to, some of these vulnerabilities that we are seeing or weaknesses we are seeing on systems, it's as a result, some of them are software. So please go to recommendations. I think it speaks to where I want to talk. Click on recommendation. Some of the recommendation as a result of configuration problem. No, not there. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so the vulnerabilities are grouped, or the recommendations are grouped into either software update or configuration. So things around password, things around things around how your operating system should be configured could be part of the recommendations that they are given here. Now, for systems that are already built, well, maybe there's not much you can do. But if you don't have a baseline, and this is where CIS benchmark comes in play. If you have a CIS benchmark and you are able to configure your maybe base or image to that benchmark, most of the vulnerabilities or security recommendations that they have mentioned here, especially the ones that has to do with configuration, they will not appear on your recommendation. If you can scroll down a little, just little by little, I want to see the ones that are not. So these ones are Windows here. Windows, go down, just continue. This is operating system based. Go down. Operating system, network. This is application, this is account. So for instance, no, wait, set minimum password length. That can be corrected, with your baseline image, with even your policy. Set enforce password history, minimum password age. All of these can be mitigated with maybe your base image and just adopting a policy position. While the operating system or the software ones would always come, like, for instance, Microsoft will always release their patch on Tuesday. So you will find recommendations here that has to happen every week or most times when vulnerabilities are published. However, there are some that once you fix them, they are fixed for life. Like this password of a thing. Once you configure your policy to accept a particular password character, maybe this minimum password length, you will never find this recommendation here again. So you can use see if you go to dashboard icon again, you can use the CIS benchmark. I can go to dashboard. Just the last point I want to mention on. Okay, icon is on the dashboard, the one on the right hand side. So there's exposure score, which looks at vulnerabilities and how exposed the organization is. Then there's your score for devices, which measures how well you have implemented the recommendations regarding applications, operating system, network, account, and security controls. And from what you can see here, there's a lot that needs to be done with application, followed by maybe accounts, security controls. And this you can easily mitigate with the CIS benchmark. I think that's all I wanted to mention. Yeah, that's all I want to mention. You can check the CIS benchmark. It's free. It's online. You can download it to know what it recommends in terms of baseline. Microsoft actually aligns with that benchmark in some of the assessment that it uses this tool to carry out. Thanks, Ayokumi.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Wally. Okay, I think here is where we stop today. So